Hey guys, I'm Barry, and nobody asked, but today I'm going to talk about abolishing the police department. All right, so this is a sign I saw the other day, and it was on social media. And when I saw it, I did a bad thing. I copied it and I posted it on my social media account, and I said the following. I said, "This is the dumbest, literally the dumbest thing I've seen today," which is saying a lot because I spent quite a bit of my day on Facebook, and I regret doing that because whenever you insult somebody else's intelligence, that's a real loss for you personally. We shouldn't do that. When other people have different opinions from us, what we should do is, if you consider yourself intelligent, you ought to use that intelligence and try to figure out the perspective of the other person. That's how we learn. All right. If we're pinheads and all we do is just reject anything that doesn't agree with our current mindset, you're not going to grow. That's how you become a pinhead. And I don't want to be a pinhead. I don't consider myself a pinhead. I consider myself to be really quite open-minded. And so my immediate visceral reaction to that was not good, because by saying this is the dumbest thing I've seen, I'm insulting the person that made the sign. So I feel poorly about that, but I said this is a good topic: abolish the police force. So I want to take a serious look at abolishing the police force and just what does that mean. So when we say abolish the police force, for most people, they don't mean literally abolish it. They mean defund it, cut it back, reform it. So they're not talking about literally abolishing it. Some people are. Some people, like, we would be much better off if there was no police. And we can think about that in a minute and talk about what would be the implications of not having any police officers, okay? But most people are talking about, let's end the police force as it now exists and replace it with something that works better in their communities. So a couple quick stats. There's about 750,000 police officers in this country. Okay, that's a lot of people. That's not 750,000 people out on the street. That's police personnel. So you've got a lot of people in desk jobs and dispatchers and whatnot. Okay, but there's 750,000 people. If we were going to literally abolish the police force, we would be putting all those people out of work. The other thing that we need to understand is that they make about 10 million arrests annually. About 10 million, of which out of those arrests, about 5% of them are due to violent crimes. So these aren't fun arrests. Not that any arrest is fun, but these are not easy arrests, okay? So we're talking about 500,000 arrests of people for violent crimes. So we need to ask the question, what would we be doing about those people if we didn't have a police force? Okay. And all in all, the cops have about 250 million contacts with the public annually. Okay. So, and what they mean by a contact is either being pulled over by a police officer in your vehicle, talking with a police officer on the street in some kind of official capacity. They're asking you questions about, did you see anything, blah blah blah. It's not just like, hi, how are you? It's an official contact with the police. 250 million in this country. That's a lot. Okay, so if we had no police force, then that's 250 million contacts that either aren't being made or are having to be made by somebody else. Okay, and it's also important to note that when I looked this up, because the idea of eliminating the police means that they're horrible, they're doing such a bad job. We would be better off if we didn't have cops. Okay, that's what the implication is. So when I looked into it, of all the, because I looked at a bunch of studies, and I basically said, where does our police force as a country rate in the world? And there's 195 countries in the world. Our police force nationally, just looking at it as a national aggregate, okay, ranks in the top 10, okay, worldwide. So top 10 out of 195 countries. that's not bad. Okay. So I think what we need to look at is not the police overall, but like maybe the police specifically in like certain localities, they're having issues with police. And I think that most of these issues are in cities. Okay. Out here in the country, I don't have much contact with the police. Where I'm most likely to have contact with the police is in my vehicle for some kind of traffic violation. Generally, here where I live, it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes for the police to respond because they're so far away. And we don't have any local police off. Well, that's not true. We have in official capacity a police chief in my town, but it's a town of 800. Okay. He doesn't carry a gun or he doesn't really do any police work. He just represents the police department of my town. If you need help, you get the state police involved, and they're a long way away. This near state trooper barracks, like I said, 20 to 30 minutes away if they're hustling. Okay. So if something bad happens where I live, you take care of it yourself. And that's why generally, if you have to make a call to 911, your next call is going to be to your neighbor. Your neighbor's going to come running, and I'm armed. Most of my neighbors are armed. So it's more of a Second Amendment thing, right? We're just taking care of each other and we're defending each other and doing the best we can. Because if we're waiting for the police to get the job done, we're gonna be in trouble. So I think we're looking at more cities, okay, dense population areas where there's a lot of contact between the police. You've got a concentration of crime, and there's a lot of anguish that's built up in the community because of those interactions between the police force and the citizens. So I'm interested in this article that is about this idea of abolishing the police force in Minneapolis. And they're not kidding. Like they mean like, let's get rid of it. And there's a council member in Minneapolis whose district, I just posted a video of this guy's district where the people in the district are defending their communities. They're out on the streets with AK-47s. They're organized. And again, this is like that Second Amendment militia idea. And they're protecting their communities from looters and rioters. And they're trying to keep people from burning their neighborhoods down, because when the unrest is over, they have to go back to living there. Okay. And so they're out defending their communities. And this one council member is thinking that maybe like this is a model going forward. All right. So here's a quote. There are clearly concerns to be addressed and areas to be fixed. However, if they choose to eliminate their police department through defunding operations without a realistic plan, they must also choose to live with the consequences of their decisions. And this is a guy by the name of Sheriff Stewart. This is not the council member. I apologize. And so if they eliminate their police department, the county sheriff's department is all the law enforcement they have left. And they have been supporting the Minneapolis police, but working in urban areas that's not their bag. And they are not excited at all about having to go into Minneapolis and police the community. And so his point is like, yeah, we're not sure that we're going to do that. If you guys make the decision that you're going to eliminate your police department, you're on your own. Okay, you're going to have to figure something out. You're going to have to live with the consequences of your decisions. And this idea of eliminating the police, I suppose that it seems like, okay, we've got some very famous abuse recently in Minneapolis, death of George Floyd, and I think it's easy for people to take an incident and blame all cops for it, right? And say, well, we're going to get our justice by we're going to get rid of all those cops. What about all those police officers that do a fine job? They're professional and they lay their lives down every single day for their community. We're going to get rid of those guys too. Is that really the answer? And if we do get rid of them, then what do you replace them with? All right. So right now, while there's rioting and looting going on, communities, law-abiding U.S. citizens who are firearms owners in the name of the Second Amendment have bonded together. One of these organizations is called Project Life, and they're on the streets at night protecting their community. I watched a video where the National Guard went through, and one of the National Guardmen was giving those guys like a heart thing, like, yes, thanks for helping out, because this is what we need. We need the citizens to protect their own communities. But long term, is that going to be your police force? They're not trained in investigation. They're not trained in making arrests. They don't have authority to make arrests. All right. And are we going to be better off having untrained, unprofessional police officers? Because call them whatever you want, they will become the police. And then what kind of a door does that open up? Like, does that open a bigger door to corruption, where now in police departments you can have corruption and you can have cover-ups and things like that, but there's still oversight, okay? Because all these local police departments come under the oversight of the state and the state attorney general's office, who's prosecuting the cops that were involved in the George Floyd murder, okay? So there's oversight. But what happens in your community if you got cops? They're not licensed, right? They're not sanctioned. They're just the community guys watching out for the community. Well, what do you do about someone who's corrupt? What do you do about someone who's taking bribes? What do you do about someone who's abusing their power and abusing people in the community? Who do you turn to if there's no police force? If there's no organized police force, we got to really start to think this through. Okay, I guess the other thing I want to mention. Because earlier when I said that our police force is ranked in the top 10 in the world, and people are like, oh my God, they're horrible. Well, again, it's the perception you get because you're being fed all of this negativity. One of my family members sent me a Reddit page recently, and the whole page was videos of police abuse. I started watching some of these videos, and they were junk. It wasn't police abuse. There was this one video where the cops are shown busting out the windows of their own cruiser. And what was being reported is that the cops were vandalizing their own car so that they could blame it on the protesters. What had actually happened is that bricks had been thrown through the window of the police cruiser, and they were knocking out the glass so that the cruiser could be driven and removed from where it was in the middle of the street. So there is a lot of misinformation. There is a lot of propaganda that is going on. So when you see these videos of alleged police abuse, okay, you got to be really careful, because there are people that are actively trying to slander the police. Now, there is actual police brutality and abuse of power. And we have to make sure that we don't go to one extreme or the other. We can't, on one hand, so support the police that we ignore a police abuse, okay? But on the other hand, we can't have a mindset that all the cops are bad and that anything I see online that shows them doing something bad has got to be real. Either extreme is wrong, okay? So abolish the police? I don't see it. Who are you going to call if you get raped? If you get attacked, who do you call if there's no police? How do you get your justice? See, it'll be anarchy. It'll be every person for themselves without police department. So that's in the extreme. And briefly, I just want to end by talking about what a lot of people are talking about is not so much abolishing the police, but defunding them, because they feel like if they take away their money, then the overreach will stop. And so I was actually surprised to find that the LA Police Department, as an individual department, was ranked as one of the best in the world as an individual department. Earlier, my stats I was talking about as a nationwide force, the police in the United States are in the top 10, but specifically, the LA Police Department was in the top 10. I think like number 6 or something like that, and I was amazed by that because they've had problems in LA, but they are currently ranked one of the top police departments of the country. They're talking about removing $150 million from their budget. $150 million. What is that going to do to that department? You think that's going to help them remain one of the best in the country? Is that going to help them get their job done in that massive city? Or is it going to cripple them? And why would someone want to cripple them? And what would be the advantage of crippling the police? See, we got to be careful, because in other countries, they'll have a official police force, but really the people that have power are, for lack of a better term, we could call them local warlords. They're gangs. They're people that control people who have guns. And so right now we have citizens in the name of the Second Amendment doing a great job defending their communities. But what could that turn into? Okay, could that turn into, back in the early 19th century with the Italian and Irish mafias and all this sort of stuff, where they controlled neighborhoods and they had their own brand of justice, okay? And the police were kind of like a separate thing. Okay, and we don't consider that that's maybe where we're headed. And would that be better? Would it be better to be at the mercy of what is essentially some kind of local mob boss? Is that good for America? Is that what we want? So clearly, I am not thrilled about the idea of abolishing the police. But if you are of the mindset that that's a good thing for America, I'm not insulting your intelligence at all, like I did with my social media post. I apologize for that. And I do want to understand your perspective. So what I need you to do is, if you believe in abolishing the police, I want you to email me and talk to me, convince me. Tell me, why would that be better than what we have right now? Okay? I acknowledge that there is police brutality, police overreach, abuse. I absolutely acknowledge that. But the incidences compared to the 500,000 violent arrests, the 10 million annual arrests, how many of those 10 million annual arrests go bad? Okay. Is it statistically significant? Is it significant enough that we should eliminate 700,000 jobs in this country and basically privatize the police force? Take it out of the hands of the government and privatize it. Convince me. I'm all ears, right? And so email me. If you like the videos, please give me a like down below. Subscribe, and you'll get and hit the bell for notifications, and you'll get a notification for when I have a new video out. And again, if you have an idea for the show and you want to hear me talk about something, it's called Nobody Asked, but you can ask. Send me something. I'm always looking for topics. I would love to hear from you. So with that said, everybody hang in there. Love your neighbor as you love yourself, and be well.